What is going on? Welcome back to the Roto Heat YouTube channel. Look at our special guest down there.
We got him.
You're watching the Roto Heat Fantasy Inferno. It's your weekly Wednesday hump day redraft live stream. And joining us today, obviously, Shane's here again, as always. He's over there. But the more important thing, we got our guy, B-Rad. We got Roto Heat Brad. How you doing?
Yo, gentlemen, what is happening? It's always a pleasure to get to talk to two of the most exciting minds in Wednesday night fantasy football content.
Ooh, just Wednesday nights, though, right?
That's a lofty.
I mean, you guys don't stream every night, so I can't say every night. I
nights.
mean, up your game and stream every night, and I can say you're the best commentary duo this side of the Mississippi, right?
Yeah, appreciate it. For those who don't know, Brad used to be the host of this channel last year, and pretty much the reason I came on and joined the team here at Roto Heat. So Brad tracked me down, found me, brought me over, and here I am. So it's great to have you on, sir.
It is a pleasure as always to get to talk fantasy football on Wednesday nights with you guys. It's we're getting a fantasy playoff season, so it's a fun time to talk. And tonight's content will be even better because
you're here.
More exciting. Well, I mean. The three of us together just makes things amazing. So
makes some magic. Shane, how's things? How you doing?
Man, I'm good. I realized I have never asked this question. I still don't know where Rick got the picture that is like my picture that is on the intro video. I have no idea where he got it from.
You got a good head of hair on that.
I do.
On that picture.
I assumed it was after you made a really bad trade and you were like, oh no.
To be honest, he probably got it from G-Man Jay. Like, because I've probably sent some stupid pictures to Jay. He probably got it from Jay.
Yeah, mine's a good pick, so I'm kind of happy about that one.
Note to self: don't send Jay any crazy pictures of yourself, man.
All right. So we're gonna get rolling here. Like Brad said, we're getting close to fantasy playoffs. Next week is another bye-mageddon. We got 6 bye weeks next week for this week. Honestly, there's not a crazy amount that we can help people with after the trade deadline's passed, and most teams know where they're at. There's a couple teams I'm sure that are out there. I've got a couple myself that you're trying to push your way into the playoffs. You win last 2 weeks, you get in, sort of thing. So let's see if we can find some waiver darlings, some deep stashes that you can at least either put on the bench, or if you got to start during bye-mageddon next week, you can throw them in there and it's not gonna kill your roster. So let's kick it off with someone I know Brad's going to be happy to have a little conversation about. Quarterback Jared Goff, your quarterback. So go ahead if you want to start us off, Brad. This is your guy. I'll let you start it off, and then I got some tidbits on Mr. Goff.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a tale of two halves with him. You'll get spurts where he just looks like a first-round quarterback, and then you'll see spurts where you're like, where did this guy play football anywhere? Like, didn't even teach him. I mean, it's like, what are you doing? I think he's playing some of his best ball. When you watch him on the field, I think he's looked better as a Lion than he ever did as a Ram. I mean, they shored up a lot of deficiencies he had with a strong defense and a running game in LA, where Detroit, he's had to step up his game. There's times where he makes solid reads, and then there's times where he thinks his arm can get him out of trouble, and he'll try to fit the ball in a window that it really shouldn't fit into. I mean, even look at Thanksgiving. The shark throw, I think, was probably a miscommunication on both of their parts. I've heard a lot of local guys talking football talk about, Shark running the wrong route or Goff making the wrong throw. I mean, but, Goff is one of those guys that you just – fantasy-wise, you can trust that he's probably a QB2 unless you get a really juicy matchup. Otherwise you're like, I don't know if I want to start him or not. Like, I don't have Goff in any leagues anymore. I traded him at the deadline anywhere I had him to people for whatever I could get. So if you can get him off waivers, I think the rest of his season matchup isn't terrible. I mean, the Minnesota matchup could be tough, but otherwise, I mean, he's got a Chicago team that's just hurting badly. My fear there is they lean on the run more. So that would be my concern, is that, with Jamal Williams' emergence, if they get ahead on some of these teams, maybe they try to run it more, and that'll really hurt his fantasy value. But otherwise, I mean, he's a QB2 that if you really need him in a pinch for bye week again in part 2, then sure, I guess, and ain't going to hurt him. What about you, Mr. Shane? Where are you at with Goff?
Man, I agree with you.
You want me to hit them with some stats? I got some juicy stuff on Jared Goff.
Yeah, I mean, before you get that, my nickname for Jared Goff has always been Jared Goffle, but it should really probably just be Jared Inconsistent, because I think what you said is accurate, Brad. Like in LA, his biggest problem was being consistent. He had the weapons around him. He had Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and Deshaun Jackson, and he didn't have Jackson. There was a third one there, and I can't remember who it is now. But anyway, he had the talent around him to have really good games. He had years where he supported both Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods as fantasy relevant wide receivers. So we know the talent is there. It's just whether or not he's been consistent. And I was actually looking at his stats real quick. If he's thrown more than 35 times a game, or we'll even say 34, he's had at least 15 fantasy points in every game except one. And that was the New England game where he only had 4.
Yeah, I think you might be on the money with this. Both of you are kind of alluding to the move from the Rams to the Lions. Maybe that offense was just, to be honest, a little too complex for him. You know, Sean McVay has a very complex offense. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of movement, and maybe it's just been simplified a little bit in Detroit. So maybe that's part of it. The biggest thing that I like about Goff here coming up in the upcoming schedule here, let's look at just his numbers. He's thrown for 2,682 yards, 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. This is something that no one's talking about that we need to be talking about heavily. If you look at his home and away splits in Detroit, of those 17 touchdowns, he's thrown 15 at home. Of those seven interceptions, only 3 have come at home. So 17-7, 15-3 at home. So he's clearly extremely more comfortable in Detroit. The wide receivers are obviously getting healthier. DJ Chark, who we'll talk about in a little bit here, obviously comes back. Jameson Williams, we might see in a week or two come off of IR with the ACL. And then DeAndre Swift, who's taken over that third down role like he should have been. And, you know, injuries are there too, but he's getting healthier as well. So if you look at the schedule, in week 13, which is this week, he plays against Jacksonville at home, 24th against quarterbacks. Then in week 14, obviously next week, they play Minnesota in Detroit, 25th against quarterbacks. Then in week 17 in your championship weekend, like Brad alluded to, Chicago 17th against quarterbacks. Plus they play
Who's he
Carolina. Carolina in week 16. That's in Carolina, so I'm not making any promises on that. But it's clear that he's more comfortable at home, and the numbers very, very much back that up. So that's something I think people need to be talking about a lot more. So if there's anybody DFS players watching, you know, you can go ahead and fire up. I think you can go ahead and fire up Jared Goff, you know, throw him with Amon-Ra St. Brown in a stack at home against Minnesota, at home against Jacksonville, and at home against the Bears. Brad, what do you think?
I don't hate it. I mean, if you need the quarterback help and you can put him in, he should produce at a high end QB2, low end QB1 type potential, especially with those bye weeks. Yeah. So you feel better about him if he's at home. I think the thing you also feel better about is if the offensive line's healthy. The issue I have is those 2 guards, both guard spots. The guys keep getting injured, and that's really hurting what they can do. They have to lean on, on trying to pass more, but teams can rush more, and it just makes it messy. So, if you're concerned about it, make sure you check the injury report. That's what I always say. If you're really thinking about starting Jared Goff, just see how the injury report looks. Tackles have been doing fine, but if those guards are out, then that causes all sorts of pressure.
Yeah, you can't get by with Dan Skipper. That's for sure.
Or ayahuasca, whisker, or whatever his name again.
Yeah, they need Jonah Jackson back. That's for sure. But we'll move on to some running backs here. This is a guy that it pains me to kind of talk about. I've never been a big Kyren Williams fan. Heading into the draft, he was pretty low for me outside of my top 10. And to be honest, I'm sticking with it. But at the end of the day, he's going to be getting touches. They're going to give him the ball. They have been, and the numbers back it up. He had 14 total touches in week 12. Tough matchup against the Chiefs, so he wasn't going to produce at a super high clip, but he did pretty well. Rest of the season schedule, he's got Seattle at home, Raiders at home, at Green Bay, Denver, Chargers. All these teams are teams that you need to run against if you want to have success and win those games. 27% snap share in his first week after injury, 55% 2 weeks ago, and then 70% snap share in his first 3 weeks. So I'm begrudgingly, saying go pick up and potentially flex Kyron Williams. I still think Cam Akers, can be a guy. I didn't like either of these guys last week. And I said last week, Shane, that I'm ready for Cam Akers to break my heart again. I won't recommend him to anyone else, but I'm ready to have him break my heart.
But Cam Akers hasn't looked bad these last 3 weeks. Like when he's running the ball, I mean, he's still getting you 4 to 5 yards per carry. I mean, he's just the volume isn't there, right? Because they're getting Kyron Williams more involved. And Kyron Williams is going to get you the points where it matters most, which is PPR. I mean, that PPR is king, and Cam is not doing that. They're not using him as a pass catching option. So
yeah, and that's exactly why I'm begrudgingly, saying Kyron Williams here, and I'm also saying that I'm ready to let Cam Akers break just my heart. I won't recommend him to anyone else, just myself. Only I can deal with that horrible pain. Shane, what do you think about Kyron? I know this is the guy you like.
Man, I love Kyron Williams. I've been saying for months that he was the best pass blocking back in the class, and that was going to get him on the field. And looky there, like you said, 27, 55, and then 70% snap shares. And it's because I think that pass blocking is going to help him help the quarterback. And then like Brad said, he's a pass catching back. So the PPR side is where his upside is, and he is going to continue to produce at that. And I think it was you, Cody, that said his last 6 games are Seattle, Vegas, Green Bay, Denver, and the Chargers. That may have been 5. I can't math that quickly off the top of my head.
That's fine. That's the last fantasy weeks.
Yeah. The toughest one of those is going to be Denver. But even they have softened a bit. So I love Kyron Williams. You absolutely should go get him. I'm probably going to flex him in a couple leagues this week pretty easily. So that's all I got.
Yeah, Brad, anything to add on Kyron Williams, the small and slow Kyron Williams?
well, the great thing is it doesn't matter how big or how fast you are if you're a good football player, right? And he's shown that he can at least be a good football player. Now, the question is he a good fantasy football player? And with that PPR value, I think he gives you more upside right now than Cam. But I will say for you dynasty guys, I'm targeting him in dynasty. Like Cam Akers is a guy I went and got at trade deadlines because he looks fine now. Like people are concerned coming back from the injury. Kyron Williams can be involved as a pass catching. I mean, look at how many teams use 2 or 3 running backs. And
look at Tevin Coleman is one that comes to mind.
Everyone uses 2 or 3.
Any San Francisco running back over the last 5 years can be involved in that conversation.
Yeah.
Sproles. I'm just thinking of guys that were like just PPR guys.
You could say Alvin Kamara.
Gainwell. I mean, there's a few guys that are getting.
Who was the kid in Chicago?
Oh, Tariq Cohen.
Thank you. That was the one I couldn't think of.
So you don't. So there's a play speed. As opposed, he's obviously not 40 times fast, but play speed is different. And he looked pretty solid so far. I was neither here nor there. I think when I had rankings, he was probably in my top 10, but probably not by much, if any. So
he was not in mine.
Yeah, I don't love him, but I don't hate him either. If he's going to help me win a championship, I'll play any running back.
Yeah, points is points. I don't care what their name is, who they are, what they do. Fantasy points are fantasy points. But let's move on to another running back here. This guy's going to be a heavily added RB, in my opinion. Is anyone want to lead off Jaylen Warren here? He's a guy that should be the handcuff. And if Najee Harris doesn't play, personally, if I'm being honest, I think Najee Harris plays this weekend. Just because he doesn't miss football games. The guy had a list rank to start the season and he didn't miss any games. So if that's going to happen, I think Najee Harris plays.
But at what point does the team shut him down? Because they're not going anywhere, right? The season's not. Pittsburgh's not getting into the playoffs. They're just not going to happen. So why hurt your stud? Because Najee is their stud running back. At least that's the way they consider it. So why not let Benny Snell and Jaylen Warren be your 1-2 and roll with it? Yeah, what are you keeping him in the game for? To get
I certainly don't disagree, but it depends on what the injury is. I heard some the fantasy doctors on Twitter. One guy was saying he's worried it's a hernia, and if that's the case, then yeah, sure, sit him down. If it was just I don't know, something.
So
tweak
PFT is
something.
saying it's an abdominal injury.
Yeah,
They
that.
32 minutes ago they released an article on Pro Football Talk saying abdominal injury, whatever that means.
Right. So I heard hernia. Who knows if it's a hernia or not? Maybe just, got the wind knocked out of him and they wanted to play it safe. I'm not really sure. But either way, I'm going out and picking up Jaylen Warren. He's clearly played his way into being the backup and handcuff running back there in Pittsburgh. In the offseason, draft season sort of a thing. The thing I had, what the description I had written down for Jaylen Warren was bowling ball. Dude's 5'8", 205, ran a 4.55, and he's just literally a downhill rolling ball of
Devonta
muscle.
Freeman 2.0.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what he looks like when he runs the ball. And he played his way and he straight up took that job in the preseason from 2 4th-round drafted running backs in Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland. He practiced fully today after that hamstring issue, and it is extremely, extremely juicy matchup against the Atlanta Falcons this week. So I think you got to go pick him up. If he doesn't play, he doesn't play. You stash him on the bench, see what happens with Najee going forward. And it's kind of no harm, no foul. It's, I'm not dropping anybody of substance or value to get him, but I'm certainly, if I have a free roster spot, I'm absolutely adding a guy like Jaylen Warren. Shane, what do you think?
I am going to play devil's advocate here for deeper leagues and say go Benny Snell. I like Warren. I agree with you from a bowling ball standpoint. I think his skill set is his explosiveness. He's going to hit the hole hard and carry the team with it. Not the team, but carry the defenders with him and get yards faster than what Najee may do. But if Najee plays, then he's just a handcuff. And with what Benny Snell did, if it's a deeper league, I'm kind of cool going and getting both or just getting Benny, depending on what you want.
Yeah, it depends on whether Najee plays or not, obviously, on that Benny Snell take. I don't disagree, but I think it very much depends on if Harris is out, then sure. If he's not, then I would still maybe Warren, but not Benny Snell. Brad, What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, if Harris is in the game, then Snell, McFarland, anyone else is kind of relegated because they play the Harris role. Harris obviously can do both, pass catch and be a true running back, but that's the upside of Warren. That's what excites you about him, is that he can be a pass catching back, and he's okay as a pure runner. I mean, none of the games I watched him in, I was like wowed by that. I was wowed more when you got him the ball out in space and let him do some things, out at the perimeter. So I've targeted both. I mean, I put fab on both guys in some of those leagues, and I landed some Benny Snells. People are overpaying for Jaylen Warren that if they didn't have him or if they dropped him for someone else. So, I'm okay with either or. I mean, Warren's the guy that'll get you a quicker return on that investment if you needed somebody to play this weekend, because he at least has potential to point, where Snell needs something to happen for him to really have some value.
Yeah, that's the biggest differentiator there for me as well. Is Warren is the direct handcuff, and like you said, he should handle the complete role, I think, which changed for me from earlier in the season. Earlier in the season, I did not think that Jaylen Warren would be the direct handcuff. I thought that it would be a combination of a few different players chipping in to achieve those Najee Harris stats, but that's what I think. I agree. And I think something needs to happen, whether Warren's out or Harris is out, for Benny Snell to even really sniff the field. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But again, I think Najee Harris plays, and then this is all going to be kind of a moot point. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. He didn't practice today, but keep an eye on the practice schedule tomorrow. If he's limited and then full, limited, and then, game time, it's just going to be I feel like it's just going to be a tough or potentially a super messy situation kind of regardless, but it's a juicy matchup that you want to take advantage of. Next up, speaking of overpaying, I think this is a guy that a lot of people overpaid for with their fab budget. I really like, not that he's not worth it, because he could be, you never know, he could be a league winner. I'm a big fan. I couldn't have him in my top 10 running back rankings in the offseason and draft season there. Zonovan Bab Knight, NC State kid, played as a true freshman, graduated early so he can get on campus, that sort of thing. I love to hear and see all that kind of stuff. Started as a true freshman at NC State, played 3 years, basically had 3 identical back-to-back seasons with the Wolf Pack.
That's correct.
Almost missed that one. So he actually he originally made this roster. He originally made the 53-man roster for the Jets, but then they had some offensive line issues and some offensive line injuries, and then they had to kind of waive him, put him on the practice squad. I don't think they particularly wanted to. I think they wanted him to be that kick returner, running back depth. You see that a lot now with running backs that teams really like. Kene Nwangu with the Vikings. Khalil Herbert did that with the Bears originally. You see Jerome Ford doing that with the Browns. And now we do have Zonovan Knight returning kicks as well with the Jets. So you see that a lot with running backs that teams really like. They find a role. We even saw it, and this is off topic a little bit, but we even saw that with Sky Moore with the Chiefs returning punts. He never even returned punts in college, but they just wanted to find him a role and get him on the field and make sure that he's doing something on that 53-man roster. He's a pretty prolific kick returner in college. He had 30 returns, 30 yards a carry or return, and three tight ends as a kick returner. 700 yards. Sorry?
3 tight ends as a kick returner?
3 touchdowns. Like I said, 700 yards a season, 5.5 yards a carry, pretty much every single year he played in college. ACC is not a gimme, conference. It's not the best. It's certainly not the worst though. So
it's not the Big 12.
Yeah, it's reasonable competition, and he succeeded, and he wasn't like some extreme bell cow. He never got more than 150 carries in any of those 3 years. So this is a guy that I like, and I always am a fan of the unknown. I'm always I'm always willing to roll the dice on a guy that we don't know much about. He comes in, he leads the team in carries, touches, yards. Just missed out on the touchdown that Ty Johnson got. So, Brad, what are your thoughts on Zonovan Knight and potentially Ty Johnson if we don't see Carter go this week? He did not practice today.
Well, so first you look at those low ankle injuries. I mean, those are typically just a couple weeks recovery time. And so if the team really is pushing for a playoff spot, maybe they rush him back. I still think he probably is going to get held out at least 1 week just to see if he can heal up. Because you don't want to make it any worse. And they have plenty of running backs. I mean, James Robinson was a healthy scratch. They could always run him and Knight and Ty Johnson and, whatever else. Knight, I like Knight. I think he's a solid ball player. I think he'd be fun to watch if they gave him the starting role. I think he'd be probably the most electric of the guys they have. Ty Johnson's a pure speed guy. Doesn't give me the warm fuzzies as a team that drafted him. I think we drafted him in the 5th or 6th round when he came out. I wasn't a huge fan. James Robinson would be a good play as well. I mean, because he's a veteran and he knows what he's doing. I don't know why he's a scratch. Knight, on the other hand, I spent a bunch of fab on him just mostly to make sure other people couldn't get him. I tend to use this time of the year, if I have a bunch of fab left, I say, all right, who can I button hook and keep from getting a player? And then I throw a bunch of money at it. So is it a waste of money? Sure, but you don't take the money with you. It's not like you keep your fab money when the season's over, so you might as well spend it on somebody.
If you don't
Shane,
use it, you lose it.
Right.
Shane, what are you thinking?
Yeah, man, I don't really have much to add except that we know what Ty Johnson is. We've seen him over the last few years. It's not been anything special. So I would go with something that is a little more unknown in Zonovan Knight, or go with like what Brad said with James Robinson if I were at the Jets. And with what we saw from Knight last week, it should be Knight. And so he probably won't be a waste of fab unless you're like Brad and you're just stashing him to be, an asshole. But
pucker up, Buttercup.
But other than that, I don't have much to add.
Yeah, this time of year, like this shouldn't be, much of a surprise that every running back we're talking about, and we got one more that we're going to talk about in a second here, they're all rookie running backs. Why? Because there's a little bit of unknown there, and they might be able to take the ball and run with it literally and figuratively, and get you into the playoffs and be league winners, because we see that time and time again where we know what Benny Snell is, we know more or less what Cam Akers is, we know what Ty Johnson is. These guys we don't know as much about, so there's a little more juice there potentially. So this is another rookie running back, Tyrion Davis-Price, 49ers, obviously Elijah Mitchell has had a hard time staying healthy. He's hurt again out the rest of the year. Christian McCaffrey, they're going to have to be careful with because they are a playoff team. They're almost, I'm not going to say they're guaranteed to be a playoff team, but, they're looking really good. They should be a playoff team. And there's no, secret out there that Christian McCaffrey is prone to getting a little banged up here and there, and he is right now. So you might as well give it to a guy who's 6 foot tall, 215, something like that. Ran a sub 4.5, which I don't think a lot of people know. It's 4.42 he ran for that big of a guy, and third round draft capital. Give him the ball 20 times and just let him run face first into a defense is kind of what I would do with him right now. Shane, what are your thoughts about TDP?
Man, unfortunately, I'm not a big TDP guy. I wasn't during the draft process. I didn't necessarily love the talent coming out of LSU. So I've stayed away from him earlier in the season, but now with Elijah Mitchell out and McCaffrey injured, we don't know if he's gonna play this week, or if he does, how much. So then basically leaves the door open for TDP and Jordan Mason. So I think as a deep waiver wire stash or deep waiver wire add and stash, he played at LSU. He's got the talent. I just didn't love it personally. So I think he's a great waiver wire add, and I think he does have potential this week to be a fill-in for you.
Yeah. Brad, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the 49ers running back situation always drives you crazy because, outside of Christian McCaffrey, it could be anybody else. I mean, the way their system works, you can just put a running back in and he'll be successful. I mean, outside of Trey Sermon for whatever reason. So TDP
put him in.
Right. Yeah, they didn't have a chance. TDP could. I mean, Jordan Mason could. I mean, hopefully for my YouTube shorts that I put up a couple months ago, one of them would, because they haven't aged well thus far. But both of them have talent. I mean, San Francisco's got a very running back friendly scheme. So whichever running back's back there is going to point. And if you have the roster space, why not? I mean, San Francisco's a good bet. They're going to try to run the ball to set up the pass. So I'm all for it. Whichever one you can grab them, stash them, see what happens.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And we could see Tevin Coleman, who's on the practice squad. We could see him get elevated and lead this team with 15 carries, right? Like
seriously,
stay home.
That conceivably could happen.
And it will.
It will happen just because you said it.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, you gotta, like I said, he's a third round pick. You got to give this guy a shot. You got to see what he's got, and this is a perfect opportunity. They're playing Miami this week. You really, really, really want to control the ball against a team like Miami. You want to control the clock, run the ball, and this is the perfect time to give him the ball 20 times, run straight ahead, and get 3.5 yards a carry. I don't think they need to ask too much from him, and I think he's capable of pulling that off, obviously with his size, 6 foot 210, 215, and like I said, sub 4.5 speed. So he has all the attributes, like you alluded to, Shane. He has the pedigree coming from LSU. He has the draft capital. He has the coaching staff. He has the system, the scheme. Everything's there for him to be a reasonable, productive running back. It's just a matter of, if he's the one that, the name that they pull out of the hat on Sunday, kind of a thing. So we'll see. But I mean, like you said, it's, again, I'll say it again, you're not going to drop, a premium asset for someone like this. But again, bottom of the roster, if you got a guy out this week or just hit the IR, fire him on your IR, pick up a guy like TDP and see what happens. Just roll the dice. It's worth seeing what happens this week, and then you can reassess.
Agreed.
Let's move on to wide receivers. This is going to be the most owned. Actually, that's not true. This is not the most owned wide receiver that we have. So he's a guy that obviously got shot up over the 40% kind of marker that we're trying to stay under for wide receivers. But there is another wide receiver we're going to talk about who's more owned than Treylon Burks. Shane, you want to lead us for Trey Burks?
Yes. He was my wide receiver one in the class. Obviously, he's a rookie. He's 6'2", 225. In the last 2 games, he's totaled 14. Actually, last 3 games, he's totaled 20 targets, 6, 8, and 6. And he had 111 yards last week, and then against Green Bay, and then I believe had a touchdown. potentially last week.
Yeah, he recovered
Fumbled.
the fumble in the
Yeah,
end zone.
fumbled.
Okay, that's what
Derrick
it was.
Henry fumble Rooski. Yep, you got it.
So,
Great play.
yeah,
Great play by my guy, Britt. Something.
Oh, Britt, Cam Britt, whatever his name
Cam
is.
Britt, something.
Guy with
Yeah.
3 names.
Great play. Great play by him, by the way. P.S.
So,
Shout
yeah,
out my Bengals when I can.
I love Treylon Burks, and I think if he is out there, you absolutely have to go get him because the talent's there, and they're because he's healthy. They're finally starting to use him.
Cameron Britt Taylor, that's his name. Yes, I agree. Brad, was he your wide receiver 1, or where did you have him ranked heading into the NFL draft?
I mean, yes and no. Yes, I like him a lot, but I
That's
like
a
Garrett
Shane
Wilson.
cop-out answer right there.
It is, because I really had him, Olave, and Wilson all right together. I'm like, dude, if I can get any one of those 3, I'm happy. Most of the time it was Olave because people liked him the least of the 3, and I think Olave's probably produced the best of the 3, or most consistent of the 3. Maybe not the best, but the most consistent of the 3.
Correction. I think I actually had Garrett Wilson as my wide receiver 1, but Burks was right behind him at 2.
I mean, this class had some really nice hot top end receivers. Burks is a very good piece. He fills in nice. I mean, for a guy with asthma, he's looking great on the field. So all those people that were hating him in the preseason, I mean, I think at this point he's proven them wrong. Even with the injury, came back and he's looked better since. And I think he fills the AJ Brown role for this team just fine. I mean, they need somebody that can be big play guy, physical, strong guy to to help move the chains, and he's done a good job. I mean, even with Robert Woods and Austin Hooper on the team, I think Burks is still one of the guys that Tannehill's looking at first and foremost when he's trying to take some shots. I mean, I like him. I think, he's over 70% ownership in most platforms at this point. But if you can get a guy like this, I would absolutely jump all over him because he can be in your lineup every week because this team's going to need to stick with teams and throw the ball a bunch because their defense is weaker this year due to injuries mostly.
Yeah, they minimum 6 targets like Shane alluded to there in the last 3 weeks since coming back from an injury. There's no secret realistically. It's pretty easy to play the Titans. You just don't want to let Derrick Henry beat you. That's it.
Right.
That's the game plan for every team. That's exactly what my Bengals did last week. That's exactly what, the Chiefs did. They got caught up in it, right? You just do not let Derrick Henry beat you and see what happens. Like if Ryan Tannehill goes out there and throws for 350 and 3 touchdowns, so be it. It is what it is, man. The better team won. They're better that day, whatever you want to call it. But you don't want to let Derrick Henry run for 150 and 3 touchdowns on you because he can absolutely pull that off, no problem. So it's a no secret. That's the game plan to play the Titans. What does that do? It opens up the passing game, and that obviously includes Treylon Burks. As the season goes on, we always see this with rookie wide receivers. Not always. Sometimes they slow down, and a couple guys have done that, but they start to figure things out. And that's what Trey Burks has been doing these last few weeks for sure. He's had an injury, he's able to slow it down, watch it from the sidelines, watch more tape, get more comfortable in his position and things like that. And we've seen him succeed as it's gone on. And he's had his 2 most successful games in the last 2 games played. So there's no reason to think that he can't kind of keep this up, keep learning, keep improving. And 6 to 8 targets a week leads to 5 to 6 catches, maybe 4 to 6 catches, call it a game. He's a big play guy. He just needs to, fall into the end zone or fall on a fumble in the end zone here and there. And, he's going to be flex worthy down the stretch. So he's got Philly this week at Philly. That's a tough matchup. I would not recommend playing him anywhere. But then at home against Jacksonville, at the Chargers, at home to Houston, at home to Dallas. Those are all reasonably juicy enough that you can start a guy like that. So, yeah, we'll see. He was my wide receiver 1 in this year's draft class. He landed in the worst possible landing spot out of any of these rookie wide receivers. So it's no surprise to see him kind of, treading water a little bit. But we'll see as the season goes on. So, yeah, this is a guy that I like for sure.
One last comment on him that Brad kind of reminded me of with Kyron Williams, the game speed thing. Like his 40 time at the combine and I think at his pro day were awful compared to what we expected.
It was like 4.55. Like
yeah,
it really
but
wasn't
compared
that
to
bad.
what people were expecting.
True.
And
That's
then,
true.
but like for me, I was like, Same thing with Kyron Williams. It just kind of lowered his ceiling just a little bit. But when you actually watch him play, he's so much faster. He was still beating people on the field.
Yeah.
So it didn't concern me with what his 40 time was. I knew he was faster on in game than what that said.
Yeah, I wasn't concerned about that at all either. I was not surprised when Kyron ran like a 4.65 or whatever it was. That was bad, and that obviously hurt his draft stock. And I thought that he was that slow heading in. But Trey Burks, you're right. Like his over under, I think the betting line on Prize Picks was like 4.42 or something like that. And I thought that was easy money on the over personally. And obviously it did. I had a guy on Twitter bet that. I was like, man, you need to cash that out right now. He's not running no 4.4. I'll tell you that. No. But we'll see. Either way, I like him moving forward. So this guy's higher owned. He's higher owned on ESPN anyways. On ESPN, Trey Burks is only about 41% owned. And that's after the waiver period, obviously. This guy's higher owned, about 44, 45%, Zay Jones. Shane, this is a guy that you wanted to touch on for sure. So you want to lead us off for Zay?
Yeah, so we saw Zay Jones' emergence kind of being foreshadowed in the preseason. Trevor Lawrence really liked him in the preseason, and then we've seen that play out during the season. He has multiple games with at least 10 targets. If you bump that down to 8 or 9, he's got even more. He's been giving you solid flex production with games of 10, 9, 14, 12, and then 24 and 27 as well, which for a guy that is in this league I'm looking at on Sleeper, which we all know how finicky that can be, he's rostered in 38% of redraft leagues. So for someone like that you can get what's been fairly consistent flex production in that 9 to 12 range, I'm absolutely willing to go spend fab or a waiver bid on him to get that consistent production.
Yeah, we saw him take a step last year, even with the Raiders. So that's kind of where he emerged onto the scene as a viable NFL wide receiver. I think it was more just everyone around the league, all NFL teams got to see that he can be a productive, wide receiver 3 for your real life NFL team, and then potentially he can take a step up from there. And he kind of has with the Jaguars. But Brad, what are your thoughts on Zay Jones?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, draft pedigree caused people to think he's a bust, but it just took him time to develop. I mean, it's not like East Carolina's produced a ton of NFL wide receivers. Buffalo took him in, I think, like second round and didn't really develop him. I mean, and I think we've seen the maturation process and the time on the field. The dude's only like 26, 27. I mean, he's still young, and I think he is going to continue to be a flex option the rest of the season. They got good matchups. Lawrence is a developing quarterback. He's made good strides this year, and I think it bodes well for all of them. If he's available in your league, he really should be on your roster at this point.
Yeah, I have him in some deep leagues. I have Zay Jones for sure. I've started him maybe once or twice. I don't know if I got burned or not, but yeah, he's definitely worth having on your roster, especially if it's a deep bench. But Shane, you're trying to say something there?
Oh, I was just making fun of Urban Meyer and saying it's amazing what happens when you have a real coach.
Oh yeah, Urban Meyer's not an NFL coach.
Yeah. Didn't Wingard say something about that the other week?
Yeah, Wingard just made a comment about him the other day. Yeah,
just a low blow shot at Urban Meyer, which is pretty easy to do. It's low hanging fruit these days. But this is the next guy we're going to talk about here. I might go on a little touch of a rant, which you might appreciate, Brad. This is a guy that I really, really like. I think DJ Chark is an extremely, extremely underrated wide receiver.
Let Sully hear you.
Sully sometimes has some takes, but either way, so he had a touchdown last week against Buffalo, 5 targets. That was his first full game back from his injury. So this kind of obviously hinges a little bit on the Jared Goff talk that we had to lead off the episode there, the home splits, obviously, things like that. The guy's 6'3", 200 pounds with 4.3 speed. That is absolutely every single offensive coordinator in the NFL could work with that, as we've seen him be 1,000-yard wide receiver. Here's some interesting little tidbits that I unearthed in my research for this. So with Chark in the lineup, with DJ Chark in the lineup, it's only been like 5 games, right? The Lions beat the Washington Commanders. They beat the New York Giants. One of those teams 100% is going to be a playoff team. Potentially both of those teams might be playoff teams in the NFC. The Lions, 2 of their 4 wins were against those 2 potential playoff teams. Then if we look at the other games that he played, the Eagles, the Vikings, the Bills, I think we can all agree that those are 3 of the best teams in the NFL right now. Potentially you could call them 1, 2, 3, right? The Lions took all of those teams to the brink. Though they lost those 3 games by a combined 10 points, against the 3 best teams in the NFL with DJ Chark in the lineup. So I'm not saying that like DJ Chark is saving them and he's the guy that's making all the difference here, but that's not for nothing. That's certainly not for nothing. Those are literally, you could say those are the 3 best teams in the NFL right now. And the Lions took him to the brink in every single game with DJ Chark in the lineup, and he was successful. Again, touchdown against Buffalo. He had a touchdown against either the Eagles or the Vikings. Can't remember. And yes. So he opens things up for other guys. He's got that speed, game-breaking speed. And I love him. I think that DJ Chark is just criminally underrated. We'll see where he goes or if he stays with this team because he's only there on a 1-year contract. I think he potentially moves on because Jameson Williams does a lot of the similar things that Chark does. So I think that he probably moves on at that price tag that he got this year. We'll see how it works out. But Brad, I'm going to kick it to you. You're a Lions fan. Let's hear what your opinion is on that.
I'm a Lions fan. Yeah, I would actually think that because of the comments he's made throughout the season about how much he loves the culture in Detroit, I wouldn't be surprised if he sticks around. Guy was injured most of the season, hasn't really been able to prove his worth, so he may do another 1-year prove it type thing. And I hope Detroit does it. You think of how much speed you have on the field with him and Jameson. I don't know if you guys saw there's a clip of Jameson running today, and he starts off, his burst is insane. Like, Chark is fast. I'm sure Jameson Williams is faster. I
agree with that.
He would probably make DJ Chark look a little slower. Chark, I like Chark. I've never had a problem with him. I've normally tried to roster him in a lot of leagues. I mean, the tough thing is that injuries have really hindered his production over the last 2 years, and it's like you don't know what you're going to get because he hasn't had enough time to really develop the rapport with Jared Goff. So you're getting some bad routes from time to time because Chark's doing something and Goff doesn't know what he's doing. So they're, throwing the ball deep and making mistakes. But I would roster him, absolutely roster him if you can, because when you look at what they have the rest of the season, they're gonna need to keep up with and compete with Jacksonville. Jacksonville's not as bad as their record. They looked really good in the win last week against Baltimore, who's a playoff team as well. Then they got Minnesota. Gonna have to throw to stay in the game there. The Jets aren't terrible. I mean, the Mike White hype train is on the move out of the station at this point. And Carolina is playing hard for Steve Wilkes. Obviously Shane probably has more to say on them than I do, but all the teams that they're facing the rest of the season, except for Chicago. Chicago's really got a lot of injuries that are hurting them. The rest of these teams are playing hard and are not going to be easy wins. They're going to take making some big plays, and a guy like Chark could be part of that. So I'd add him absolutely if you've got the space.
Yeah, Shane, what do you got?
Man, I love DJ Chark. I agree with both of you guys. And honestly, Brad, kind of to your point about the Panthers game, if there were one way I would attack the Panthers, it would probably be on the deep ball with DJ Chark. Our secondary's been kind of banged up and beat up, and that's where I think you can beat us. And obviously you guys have Jamal Williams and Swift to set up the run too. So you've got the play action. So, but that's 4 weeks away. So let's talk about now. DJ Chark, I love him. I completely agree with what Cody said. He's 6'4". He's got incredible speed, and he's been underrated because, I mean, hell, who was his quarterback for the first 3 years of his career? It was Blake Bortles.
Gardner Minshew.
Bortles
and Minshew. I think that was it.
And then he was out for a year.
Yeah,
and then he had some injuries. Yeah,
and then he got hurt last year, and then he was hurt this year, and he's had Goff. So I loved the signing too when they signed him, because to me, this is just kind of how if I were running a football team, I would have guys that are good at different things. And to me, DJ Chark kind of fit that mold with the Lions to give them that one piece that they were kind of missing. And then obviously they went and drafted Jameson Williams, and I do think they'll end up doing similar things. But like Brad said, if you've got Williams and Chark on the outside, then you can put St. Brown wherever the hell you want him to do, and he can use his route running technician to get open, and that opens up the rest of the field. I have ADHD, so my brain is all over the place right now, so I apologize. But ultimately, long-winded way of saying, I agree with you guys. I think DJ Chark's been underrated. If you can roster him, do it. And yeah, that's all I got.
All right, there we go.
Bingo.
Yeah, no, it'd be an interesting offense if they do have Chark, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra, and they draft the tight end in the draft as well.
That
So
was the thing. Like they had Hawk out. Like I was so excited to see this offense like at full bore with Hawk, and then they traded him.
Well, we'll see
how
it works out.
He didn't seem to fit with them, right? Like
I agree with that.
It was weird. As good as Hawkinson was, it just didn't seem like a good fit. And I think James Mitchell's a guy to watch. I mean, a tight end to watch because he's starting to get a little bit more involved. And the injury was going to slow his return, but the kid's athletic. I mean, they seem to like him, and he plays. I've been surprised by what I've been seeing with him. So he'd be a tight end. I think fits with Detroit well, and he's already on their team.
Yeah, I think Dan Campbell just wants his tight ends to do a little more in the blocking game, kind of like he was when he was a player. So that's kind of how I see it. But a couple guys left. We got to kind of blow through these so we can get to these questions here. Next up, we got Nico Collins, at least 7 targets, 5 catches, and 3 straight coming off the growing injury. Makes no difference who's at quarterback for this team. It really doesn't matter. Just someone with an arm that can throw to him. Hopefully it's a bad team. They're forced to throw the ball. There's nothing left to play for this team. This is another guy, 6'4", 215, ran 4.42. Very, very fast considering his size and his height and his weight sort of thing. I think that this is a guy that is going to be that next third-year wide receiver breakout next year. I was all over him this year in best ball. Next year, I'm going to be even more so all over Nico Collins in best balls, especially after they draft CJ Stroud. Brad, what do you got? Make it relatively quick. We got to blow through these. What do you got for Nico Collins? I know you like him. We talked about him last year.
Yeah, definitely a volume guy. Not going to get you a ton of yards, but he's going to get you, if you're in a PPR, he's definitely one of those names that you can flex him right now. I mean, he's getting 5-6 catches a game.
Yeah, absolutely. 40 yards. He's done basically the exact same thing for the past 3 weeks. He just needs to, uptick a little bit, fall into the end zone, and he's a flex play. Shane, what do you got?
Why aren't you rostering Nico Collins already? That's a damn shame. That's pretty much all I got. Like his athleticism, his size, his talent, he should have already been rostered. We shouldn't be talking about him, but because he's on the Texans, they're a bad team. That's probably why. And you still should have rostered him because of the potential. So that's all I got.
Third year breakout. Yeah, third-year breakout, and get ready to hear a lot about Nico Collins this offseason. I'll tell you that. Next up, Ben Skowronek. Such a weird name, but obviously with the LA Rams. Shane, this is your guy. What do you got about Skowronek?
Yeah, I mean, he's rostered criminally low, I think, in sleeper leagues and ESPN. The sleeper league I'm looking at is 15%. If I remember correctly from ESPN, it was like 4% maybe. Allen Robinson's out for the rest of the year. This guy's more athletic than Allen Robinson. You should roster him.
I like Van Jefferson a little better, but to be honest, the biggest concern I have with this entire team is if Bryce Perkins is shot putting the football out there every week, it's not going to be good for any wide receiver on this team, if I'm being honest.
That is true.
So realistically, I'm avoiding anyone on the Rams, just except for those running backs we're talking about, just because Bryce Perkins he literally looks like he's throwing a shot put when he throws the football. I don't even know how it ends up as a spiral. But Brad, what do you got about Skowronek here?
Yeah, both of these guys were on our list for the weekly waiver wire video that we put out. We didn't put Skowronek on there because Van Jefferson's ownership was under 40% in most leagues. So we said, we'll go with Jefferson because he's probably their number one. I don't know that either of them are going to be flex worthy at this point if the quarterback situation isn't. If it's John Wolford, sure. Maybe. But if it's Perkins, it's like you can't trust it.
Yeah. He really, really needs to work on his mechanics, but maybe he can be a practice squad quarterback to emulate Lamar Jackson. He should actually probably have a job in the NFL just because of that. Moving on, wide receiver Richie James. This is another guy you were talking about, Shane. So I'll let you lead off on Richie James as well.
Cool. Yeah, he started off the year decently strong with some flex value plays, and then I don't know what the hell happened. We'll just call it Giants being Giants, and had 5 rough games. But then after the bye and the Houston game, he's bounced back with 13 and 15 points in the last 2 games and catching touchdowns in both of those. I think he's a guy that Daniel Jones has been keeping his eye on this year, and so that's going to give you some kind of flex value in deeper leagues specifically.
It was a guy that I liked that we talked about this guy, Brad, when we did a waiver show at some point throughout the year. Middle Tennessee State guy, a guy that I always really liked. Good, prolific with the ball in his hand, punt returns, kick returns, slot receiver, smaller guy. I don't mind him. I'm concerned about the Giants with their inability to run the ball right now. That's not allowing them to set up the pass a little bit better. That's my biggest concern with Richie James, is just that the offensive line injuries for the Giants have really hindered the running game, which has kind of hindered the entire offense and the team, really. So that's my biggest concern. Not that I don't like Richie James, because I absolutely do. Brad, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the Giants need to put somebody out there, right? Slayton's my favorite on the team, then Richie James is right there. I mean, these are 2 guys that Daniel Jones trusts and will target. So flex worthy at multiple points for the rest of the season, I'm sure.
Let's keep an eye on Isaiah Hodgins. I want to throw his name out there. Let's keep an eye on him. If he caught that touchdown pass with that bogus down the field, he might be the guy we're talking about right now. So, with his attributes, again, that's another guy I just wanted to mention, Isaiah Hodgins. Let's just keep him on the back burner there. So we're going to get into a little bit of
that I like some Slayton. So
there you go.
Right.
We're going to get into a little bit of IDP talk. That's kind of why we brought Brad on. He doesn't get to talk about it too much. So I play IDP leagues. I'm excited to talk about it. Couple guys that you wanted to mention and bring up. Troy Anderson, linebacker for the Atlanta Falcons, Montana guy. What are your thoughts on Troy Anderson, Brad?
Yeah, his snap share's been up. He's getting more heavily involved in this defense. And, and the ownership's pretty low across fantasy leagues. So he's a guy that you can flex in if you need some linebacker help, especially with some of the injuries that have been happening. And he's producing well. He's had 2 very solid fantasy productive weeks. He's not elite, but he's a really nice rookie that in redraft you can flex him in if you need him. And in a dynasty, I mean, you should have him rostered if you don't already. You're missing the boat, because this kid's probably one of their starting backers in the future. From now on, really, he's really, really, really strong player. Good speed. Great size. I mean, he's like 6'4", like
6'4", 235.
Yeah, 235. And it's like he's perfect size, good speed. It wouldn't be surprised me if he got some pass deflections or maybe even interception over the next few games, just because of how well he can cover. And he does good in all areas of the defense. I'm excited about him for sure.
Yeah, this could be a guy that the Washington Commanders want Jamin Davis to be. Similar size and speed type of player. So I like Troy Anderson.
This guy's more ready though than Shane and Davis was.
Exactly. That and the draft capital was 1st round versus 3rd round for Troy Anderson. So that's a big steal in my opinion. Just went to a small school, but as a guy that plays IDP as well, I'm always looking for heavily involved linebackers that play on bad teams. Right. That's why Roquan has always been great, because Roquan's a great player regardless. Don't get me wrong, but he's getting even more volume tackles playing on the Bears. And similar thing with the two linebackers that we're talking about here, is they get that volume, those volume tackles, which is where IDP points come from. So I always just try to focus on bad teams that have good linebackers and play at a high snap share. Any thoughts, Shane?
No, I'm gonna deflect to you guys on this on this one specifically. Don't know much about him, but 6'4", 235 with good speed, and he's had I'm looking at this one IDP league that I'm actually the commissioner of, and he's had good production in it pretty much all year. There's a couple stinkers in there, but it's been relatively consistent. So, like Brad said, you've got to go get this guy if he's available.
Now that Deion Jones has moved on, he's ready to go. Next guy that you want to mention, Chad Muma from the Jaguars. This is a guy that I just picked up in one of my leagues, and obviously I'm playing him. What are your thoughts on Chad Muma?
Yeah, I mean, most people probably at this point have now seen something about him because he had a season high, in tackles last week. I think he had 8 or 9 tackles, which was big for him last week. And, he's getting heavily involved in this defense, and people were afraid to jump on him just because, they kind of drafted a linebacker in the first round and then they came back later and grabbed this one. But this one is just as good. I mean, he deserves every chance to play as the guy they took in the first round. Both are very smart football players. And this Jacksonville defense is going to be really interesting as the season moves on and as the years move on, because Muma is going to make them put him on the field because he's a very good tackler. He's a sure tackler. He may not have the same – when it comes to the range, I like Anderson a little bit more. I think he might be a little bit more game speed, have a little bit more than Muma, but probably not by much. I mean, these are both two guys that you can add to your roster and flex in now. And then, for the Dynasty folks that aren't watching tonight because it's a free draft show, Dynasty guys should be excited about both these linebackers, and they should have already been rostered. But yeah. I like them both the rest of the season, and they have good matchups too. So if you needed help and you needed to go grab somebody, both these guys are fine.
Yeah, Chad Muma, similar to a guy on your team, Malcolm Rodriguez, a little bit, and the fact that he kind of forced their hand, and he's one of those guys that just shows up, keeps showing up, and then you can't take him off the field. It just kind of you slip and fall into playing 100% of the snaps because the coaches can't take you off the field. So that's an extremely good attribute for someone to have, especially, another small school guy coming out of Wyoming, just played 100% of the defensive snaps last week. That was a big reason why I picked him up. And yeah, kind of the sky's the limit. So I'm excited to see what he can do. So there you go. But who else? Anyone else do you want to touch on, Brad?
I mean, if you're looking for a veteran to play now, I know McLeod from the Colts, a safety, is available.
Another guy I just picked up this week too. Actually,
Rodney McLeod would definitely be a guy I would tell you to go pick up because he's been getting heavily involved in that defense, and and players like that. I mean, those are the types of guys that you want, guys that are just getting heavily involved that are underappreciated at this point. I mean, really, at this point in the season, he should have already been rostered because he's been involved for a few weeks. But those are probably the 3 biggest names that I thought of when preparing for tonight.
Yeah, definitely strong safety type of a guy that plays downhill and is great in the run game, reasonable in the, in coverage. And, but yeah, he gets those volume tackles again. That's what you're always looking for in IDP is tackles is what gets you the most points realistically. Sorry, the most consistent points is those heavy volume tackle guys. But, yeah, so there we go. A little bit of IDP to kick off the main portion here. We're going to get to questions now, so appreciate everybody sticking around. Hopefully you're still here. Go ahead. Please hit that like button for us. Helps the channel a ton. If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. We're pushing in on 5,000 subscribers. That's a big milestone for us. And then, obviously 10, sky's the limit. I know Brad, like you said, has been working hard on the shorts, and those have been adding a ton of subscribers and everything like that. Actually, I wanted to kick into next week's show as well. So Shane had a great idea. Next week, we're going to do, obviously, like I said at the kickoff of this show, it's kind of tough to find things to talk about towards the end of the year when, the playoffs are here, the fantasy season's wrapping up. There's not a crazy amount of, groundbreaking thoughts that we can add to your fantasy team. So we figured we'd do a redraft, redraft, mock draft, whatever you want to call it. And we wanted to include the fans of the show and people that comment and everything like that. So you'd have to join the Discord above Shane's head over there. Join our Discord, get in there. Maybe just at myself or Shane and say, hey, I want to take part. We'll add you to the mock draft. And then, you can watch the show live, be part of it, everything like that. So I think that's a great idea, interactive with the people that watch the show consistently. So go ahead, join the Discord, at Shane or myself, send us a DM, whatever you want to do. We'll get you in the mock draft and we can have some fun. Maybe Brad will join us. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see who joins us. Either way, we'll fill it up. And that's what the plan is for next week. I just want to throw that out there, pitch it for everybody. If anyone in the comments wants to join, absolutely, we'll get you in on that. So all that out of the way, let's get to some questions. First up, we got Wanda Bread. Hashtag F, I don't know if that's a word, whatever. Lazard or Wilson? Wilson is against Minnesota. Lazard plays the Bears. It's pretty close.
I can't believe I'm about to say this on live on YouTube, but give me the Gare Bear.
I mean, if Aaron Rodgers is playing, Lazard probably, but I would probably say Wilson has the bigger boom potential. If you're looking for a boom and you really need a big, Wilson's probably the one you go with.
Yeah, floor probably Lazard, ceiling Wilson, but it's actually not that far off for the floor for Wilson. To be honest, I'm going Garrett Wilson here too. So either way, I'm going Garrett Wilson. If I'm being honest, Rodgers just isn't healthy. He's just not healthy, and I'm not trusting him, especially with Christian Watson taking a big leap forward. He's got
and
more
Dobbs
touchdowns than
back
some.
this week too.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson, especially with the MVP, future Hall of Famer Mike White throwing the ball.
White.
So there you go.
Look,
full PPR. Yeah, it doesn't change anything. It actually probably gives Garrett Wilson a bit of a boost.
Yeah,
full PPR.
Completely agree.
Yeah. Another one from Wanda Bread: Conklin or Foster Moreau. I mean, you don't want to be starting Garrett Wilson and Ty Conklin, in my opinion. But, you could do worse, I suppose.
I think Moreau has an interesting matchup this week.
Who do they play?
Chargers.
Yep.
You'd think Derwin James is a little more useful trying to help out with Devontae Adams. So yeah, that should open up things for Foster Moreau. I think he's had some pretty sneaky, decent weeks in the last few weeks. So
yeah, I mean, he's probably at least going to get you 5 to 7 targets, where Conklin maybe.
Well, especially this is the same person, especially if you're starting Garrett Wilson. You don't want to be starting Garrett Wilson and Conklin.
Stacking Jets receivers.
Exactly. You never want to be doing that.
Why did QB? Why not?
Unless you're swinging for the fences in a DFS, Millie Maker.
You'll be swinging, that's for sure. You'll be swinging on the sidelines, watching everyone play for fantasy championship.
So in this case, if it is the same team, I'm going Foster Moreau, Garrett Wilson. If it's maybe a separate team, whatever, then to be honest, I would go with Conklin over Morrow, only if it's a separate team.
I'll agree with that.
It's super close. Realistically, I think it's going to be a damned if you do, damned if you don't on this one. And either way, you're right or you're wrong. We won't know till Monday which one that was. William lost Ertz, Zach Ertz in a 12-man PPR, picked up Dulcich. Someone just dropped Higbee. I know he hasn't been playing well. Is there a deep tight end I can pick up? Ooh, deep tight end you can pick up. Is Evan Ingram free?
Yeah, that's a good one too.
I would lean on our waiver video. Whatever tight ends were in our waiver video were all pretty low ownership.
Harrison Bryant would be my pick, actually. Even with Njoku, he had a rough week last week, but he had 10 points against Miami and 8 points against Buffalo.
So this opens the larger question: is how do you feel about Watson coming back against Houston? Do you think they lean on the run, or do you think he lights them up? Right? I mean, that's the.
Well, there's Amari Cooper, there's DPJ, there's Njoku, there's Hunt. All those guys are ahead of Harrison Bryant for sure in the pecking order as far as targets are concerned. They're going to run the ball a lot against the Texans, in my opinion. They're the worst team in the league against the run, and they got one of the best running backs in the NFL. So, I'm thinking maybe a guy like Logan Thomas, Juwan Johnson if he's available, Evan Ingram if he's out there. Guys like that are kind of Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper's probably he's available in a lot of things. Guys like that are guys I would look at personally. Brad, you got any thoughts? Michael Pruitt? No.
That was a joke.
Did he have a touchdown?
If you're looking for boom plays, Dulcich has a chance just because of the weird injuries for the Denver wide receivers. Hooper be a guy I would trust because Tannehill likes to target him. It really depends on what's available. Your question is perfect for the Roto Heat Discord. Jump in there, say who's available, and then we can try to help you more. But, I'm playing matchups if you need tight ends. Look for the teams that give up the most points. So
Cardinals are on bye. Sorry.
Yeah, Cardinals are on bye.
I'm going Dulcich over Higbee, though. Higbee's, even lower on my pecking order than Van Jefferson.
The quarterbacks in LA,
Yeah. Justine Garcia, half PPR. I have Jefferson, Godwin, Amon-Ra, wide receiver, but I have Chase on the bench. Should I place one with Chase? Not yet. is my opinion on that one.
Godwin's been balling. Jefferson, you can't sit, and St. Brown, I feel like, is the same way.
Yeah, the only issue is Chase said himself that, you know, we'll see. We'll kind of see. You know, I'd like to see one game with him back. A hip is a bit of a finicky thing for a wide receiver. So I would wait at least 1 week just to see, unless you have no other choice, but you 100% do have a choice here. You have that's an extremely good wide receiver room that you have there. So I think you can get away with, you know, waiting a week to see what Chase does. It's a good matchup, but I want to see 1 week first if I can. What are your thoughts? Anyone else? Brad? Shane?
Yeah, I would stay with what you got.
Agreed.
At least at this point.
Yeah. Just wait 1 week, see what happens, and then take it from there. But you got a good problem there, man. That's a good wide receiver room, that's for sure. Giselle Tran, half PPR, choose four, 2 RB, 2 flex. Stevenson, Mixon, or P. Ryan. Yeah. Pollard, White, Kyron Williams, Zonovan Knight. Thanks, fellas. Appreciate the question. I'm going Stevenson without a question.
Yep.
I think Mixon's probably trending in the wrong direction this week, right?
Yeah, he
Really?
didn't. I don't think he practiced today, which is
I
wild.
thought he still hasn't practiced. So I would do Stevenson and White.
Yeah, he's still in protocol, which is concerning, and didn't practice today, which is very concerning.
Go Stevenson, White, Pollard, and who did the Jets play?
I'd go with P. Ryan as my fourth there because they're playing KC. He did really well against the Titans, which are the best team in the league against the run, and Samaji was pretty good. So if Mixon doesn't play, I mean, I'm going with one of those 2 running backs like you have here. Obviously depends on the concussion protocol like you have. Stevenson, Mixon, or P. Ryan. I'll agree with Rachaad White, even though I don't like him as a player either, and Pollard.
Fantasy points are there, though.
Exactly.
Right? At least right now there is. Yeah.
Yeah. Take it while it's hot. If anything changes, maybe Kyron Williams, but or Zonovan. I guess you can't particularly go wrong with either of those 2 guys. It's a bit of a toss up. Jaws, our guy Jaws, always in the chat. Good to see you. Russell Wilson, Stafford, break a lot of hearts this year. Yeah, you bet, especially in the best ball community. That's for sure. Giselle, again, is this a different question?
Yep.
Yeah. PPR.
Oh, well, it's including the wide receivers and not really. It's not different. It's showing you.
No,
Giselle's playing Justin Herbert, Amon-Ra, Schultz, and then you're choosing 4. So
yeah,
hopefully that last one helped you on there.
Yeah. I don't know. He stole his ice cream out of the.
Probably made a Brady marriage joke or something, and sits down.
Yeah. Here's a really interesting question. He's
starting in Green Bay next year because Aaron Rodgers will be a Colt.
Not a chance in the world that happens. So Aaron Rodgers
looked good though, right? I mean, Jordan Love looked good.
Here's the facts that are never going to change. There's a 0% chance that Aaron Rodgers will not be the quarterback in Green Bay next year. 0%. Why? It's like $60 million dead cap. It's not possible.
Yeah,
it's worse than Matt Ryan. It is not possible that he leaves. So Aaron Rodgers will be there. But do the Green Bay Packers do the smart thing and trade Jordan Love to, in my opinion, the New York Giants for a first-round pick? Or Colts? Or actually, funny you mentioned the Colts, Brad. In my mock draft 2 years, what was it, 3 years ago, whenever Jordan Love was a rookie, when he was drafted, in my mock draft, I had the Colts trading a couple second-round picks or something, a first and a second, I think, to move up and draft Jordan Love, which they should have done, but here we are. That's what I think that someone needs to do. Throw a first-round pick to the Packers. They can wash their hands of Jordan Love, and a team like the Colts, the Giants is my landing spot for them. And or another team. There's lots of other Jets as well. Lots of other teams that can do that.
What about Seattle? I know Geno's been
like
playing
Geno
well.
enough. He takes for the playoffs.
Yeah,
give a guy a shot.
Yeah.
Well, there will be a short about. I actually literally recorded a short today saying go target Jordan Love everywhere you can because he looks ready to start. I mean, and
I picked
this
him up
is
in
what.
keeper league.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you have to have him on your roster because what this is showing you, and this is what's going to hurt guys like Zach Wilson and some of these other guys, is there are still quarterbacks that need 3 years to sit. I mean, think about Aaron Rodgers. He was on the bench for like 4 years behind Brett Favre before he got in, right?
Yeah.
So, some of these quarterbacks just aren't ready to start immediately. And you've got, as a team, you're doing yourself a disservice if you draft a guy early and then you rush him in and he stinks and you bum him out of the league when Jordan Love had a lot of concerns, but he's developed. They've done something with him. And this year in the preseason and when he got in during the regular season, both times I'm like, this guy's ready to go. Somebody's got to start this dude.
To be honest, it's not some quarterbacks, it's most.
Oh, yeah,
most
absolutely.
quarterbacks.
Absolutely.
Some can come in and start right away. Not everybody's going to be Joe Burrow. Not even a guy like Josh
Joe
Allen.
Burrow wasn't Joe Burrow. There were a few times where we're like, "Ooh, he's looking a little rough."
Look at Joe Burrow's
potentially,
college
but
career.
he's still got there. Joe Burrow, I was never concerned about whatsoever, and we're seeing why. But Josh Allen, he's a guy that took a few years, and people were calling him a bust. People were saying he wasn't going to be blah 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 blah, and he just took a couple years. Good thing he didn't turn into Christian Ponder, not Blake Bortles, Blaine Gabbert or something like that, right? Just a big, strong-arm guy. He
Gabbert's had a long career as a nice backup.
More likely, a quarterback ends up like that and not like Josh Allen, right? That's by far the more likely scenario that takes place. Luckily, Josh Allen put in the work. He's got a good head on his shoulders, and he made it happen. But the more likely scenario is that quarterback fails. So, yeah, it's most quarterbacks. And Zach Wilson, I said it a few weeks ago, he was my number 6 quarterback in that draft class. I hated him. I hated him and I don't like him still. He's not a good quarterback. He's not a good leader. That's the biggest problem that I was concerned about, is he's not going to be able to go into an NFL locker room and command the respect and be able to lead grown men that, come from all kinds of different backgrounds. He's a rich kid from friggin' BYU that never really had to work for anything in his life. And now here he is trying to run a locker room in the NFL. Good luck. And we're seeing that kind of come into fruition here, in my opinion. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I don't think so. And that's what I see. And that's what I was concerned about. But you're right, though. I agree. Jordan Love does look ready to start now. He looked quite good in the preseason, actually. Mm-hmm. And then every time he's come in, in spurts here and there throughout the regular season, last year, this year, he's looked good as well. So that's what I think. First round pick to the Packers. There's tons of teams out there. Shane, you and I say it all the time. There's not even 32 quarterbacks in this league. There's not. So, and this is a guy that's on somebody's bench that you can, like I said, you fire a later. Let's say the Jets make the playoffs. The Jets make the playoffs. They have a later first-round pick. You're telling me that doesn't make complete sense to everyone involved?
100%.
So I shouldn't have said the Giants. The Jets are actually more likely. Well, the Giants too, because they should have a later first-round pick where you're not going to get the C.J. Stroud. You're not going to get the Bryce Young. You might not even get Will Levis. So you trade your first-round pick, Jordan Love. He's your quarterback of the future.
I mean, anybody after the top 2 guys, you really consider trading your pick for a guy like Jordan Love. Right now, in the development, I would rather Jordan Love over Anthony Richardson, over Tyler Van Dyke, over all these guys that are kind of your next tier of quarterbacks coming in. Absolutely take a kid who's ready to start as opposed to somebody who I've got to prepare and get ready and do all the, get all the reps in that Jordan Love has already got. So why not target him?
What about Max Duggan, though?
Yeah, no. I'll take Cade McNamara over Max Duggan.
Oh, I don't know. We'll take it easy. Take it easy.
I'm not a huge Duggan fan, although I do like the TCU's making this little run. They're a fun team to watch, but I'm just not a huge. Maybe more time in there might make me.
They are a little bit of a mirage, I think, and we'll see what happens in the college football playoffs.
They're gonna get smoked.
Well, yeah.
This year's been interesting. All the teams have shown some sort of deficiency where they can be beaten, but Georgia's going to be the hardest one to beat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll see. It should be exciting. That's a great question, though, Jaws. That's one that I've been thinking about a lot myself. Obviously, you can tell with my long-winded answer, but I think that's absolutely I think somewhere, yes. Jordan Love starting somewhere, yes. I think we'll see if the Packers are willing to kind of let him go. That's the biggest issue that they might have there. Plus, you still have the fifth year option with them, which is great. Actison, hey boys, 3-1, one win from securing a bye. Should have started Christian Watson or Debo? No question.
Start your studs.
Always Debo, and always Debo. Especially with Christian Watson being out a little bit, he might get a little more run. With the running back against a team like Miami, that's going to be a bit of a shootout, in my opinion. So, yeah, absolutely. Jimmy G sounds healthy and needs some points with Miami. Hard to sit the streaking Watson. Yeah, exactly. Debo for sure. Gino or T-Law?
It's got to be Gino, right?
Gino plays the Rams.
No.
Trevor Lawrence has Detroit, but their defense has been better recently than people lead on to.
32nd against quarterbacks.
They've been pretty strong these last 4 games, though. I mean, I'd be careful here on this one.
I'm going to go with T-Law simply because I think that the Seahawks would be able to run the ball quite easily with Aaron Donald being out and the offense for the Rams looking very, very poo-poo, especially if Bryce Perkins is starting and no Aaron Donald. I think that Kenny Walker can absolutely have a heyday, and they might not throw the ball a crazy amount. That's the only and the Lions put up points. They put up points. So
true story.
In what I would think might be a shootout, I'm going T-Law. Yeah. Shane, who do you got?
T-Law.
And you're going Gino, Brad?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
2-1.
I think they're both fine. I think either one of them's a good start.
Yeah.
Now that we have a third guy on, 2-1, you lose. That's it.
Hey, that's all right. I don't mind losing. You guys deserve it.
Shane, what were you saying there?
I was just saying, I agree with Brad. I think either is a fine option. I just, with the way that T-Law, I think we might see like that kind of aha moment with T-Law where he skyrockets into what we all thought, or at least what most of us thought he was supposed to be, which is this blue chip, excellent prospect. Like we've seen bits and pieces and flashes. And then last week, he finally had that game-winning drive and that just excellent game. I'm going T-Law against Detroit.
I agree. Hey, Brad, just a quick off-topic question here. If the Jags did what they should have done and took Aiden Hutchinson, how stoked would you be to have Sauce Gardner right now? Because that's who I had. That's what I had happening in my mock draft. Aiden 1, Sauce number 2 to the Lions.
It looks a lot different, but I bet Sauce has a lot more trouble because there's no defensive line in front of him. Like nobody's creating pressure other than Aiden Hutchinson. Lee McNeil's developing, but I mean, if there wasn't somebody else to help, I mean, yes, I would love Sauce Gardner. I mean, him and Jeff Okudah together. I mean, that's just a disgusting combo, right? But
Sauce is the real deal. He is absolutely the real deal.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what this says. Fork showing he's done in the Sammy Watkins dynasty cake.
Are we putting a fork in Sammy Watkins? Yeah, Sammy Watkins has been forked for a while.
Sammy Watkins is dead.
I've not touched him in fantasy football in many, many moons, and I would
because he's Sammy Week 1 Watkins. He's only good for Week 1, and then he's done. And this year it wasn't even that. So,
I mean,
Jets D or Bills D rest of the season. This is the last question. Fu Yang, appreciate the questions.
Man, either one is fine. I mean, the Jets are one of those teams that I've said is a sleeper for the playoffs. If you need help and you don't have a elite defense, well, you got the Bills. Then I mean, you have a really strong defense. So I don't hate either. I'd probably lean Bills though, if I'm being honest.
I was going to go the opposite way. I'd lean the Jets just because of the injuries. Gregory Rousseau is a little banged up. Von Miller might not play again. Tre'Davious White, I know he just got back, but that was a tough injury there. Hyde. Micah Hyde is out. Poyer's had some injury. You know, they're just a little nicked up. There's a little bit nicked up. Yeah, and you know they're not that good without that defensive line. attacking the quarterback. And if they're banged up there, which they are, it kind of concerns me. They're still good, still a very good defense, but I lean the Jets. It's super close.
Jets have great matchups the rest of the year, which is why I would say, the Jets have the best
Brad,
chance.
you ruined my question. I was
You had
going
a
to
question?
ask you guys.
What was your question?
I was going to ask you guys a question. Detroit, Jacksonville, and Seattle, or Miami, Chicago, Cincinnati?
Oh, yeah.
The first one.
Yep.
The first one.
Jets
So
schedule.
then it's
Which
the
is
Jets.
the Jets. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll
There you
lean
go,
Jets.
I'll go Jets.
Take the Jets and win that championship, Foo. We're behind you.
There you go. Appreciate the questions. No worries at all. So like I was saying earlier, if next week you want to be involved with the redo mock draft, jump in the Discord right above Shane there. Just fire myself or Shane a quick DM, quick little message. Let us know that you want to be a part of it. We'll make sure you get the link. Should be a fun episode. Obviously, you can be in the chat. We can, talk mess to each other, all that kind of stuff. It'll be fun. Probably do 3 or 4 rounds. I'm not really sure, but we'll have some fun with it. Huge thank you to one of our original OGs of the channel, the guy that brought me here and everything like that. Brad, appreciate you coming on. It was great to chat a little pigskin with you tonight. Anything you want to say?
Yeah, just always a pleasure. Thank you for everybody that hangs out every Wednesday and Tuesday and Sunday morning and checks out the shorts. You guys are the real goats here. We do appreciate you guys allowing us some time in your screens this week.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes each and every one of you guys to make the magic happen over here. So appreciate the fans. So like I said, if you want to be involved, we're trying to include the people that watch the show. So jump in the Discord, let us know, and we'll get you in the mock draft for next week's show. Shane, you got anything to say to the piece before we leave?
Yes. Follow us on Twitter at RotoHeatFantasy. I'm trying to work in some more tweets. Probably work on some more engagement stuff over the off season to throw some polls out there, things like that. I will also tweet out the link for the Discord so you guys can join it easily from there. And then, like Cody said, just DM us either on Discord or on Twitter if you want. We've got all of our handles here in our names. So follow us there, DM us there, and we will get you in the mock draft for next week. And if you have any questions ever, dynasty or redraft, I am more than happy to answer those. So thank you guys for watching. Love you guys.
Absolutely. Dynasty show on Tuesday nights. We'll be back next week. Sunday's got this boomer bust start sit question Sunday morning before the lock. This show will turn into a best ball show after the season's over. I can't wait to chop it up there with you guys and get some of the team on for that. Hit that like.